The United States has long been a global superpower, but in recent years, tensions have been rising with several countries. Whether it's due to trade wars, political disagreements, or shifting alliances, many nations are starting to push back against U.S. influence. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the top 10 countries that are turning against the United States in 2025. From economic sanctions to military rivalries, these countries are making moves that could change the global balance of power. Stay tuned as we break it all down. Number 10, North Korea has always had a tense relationship with the United States, but in 2025, things have gotten worse. The country continues to develop its nuclear weapons program despite U.S. sanctions and warnings. North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, has strengthened ties with Russia and China, both of whom are also at odds with the U.S. Additionally, the U.S. has increased its military presence in South Korea, which Pyongyang sees as a direct threat. North Korea has also been accused of cyber attacks on American infrastructure, further escalating tensions. Diplomatic talks between the two nations have stalled, with both sides unwilling to compromise. Economic sanctions from the U.S. have hurt North Korea, but instead of backing down, they've responded with more aggressive missile tests. The situation remains highly volatile, making North Korea one of the most hostile nations toward the U.S. today. Number 9. India's relationship with the United States in 2025 is becoming more complicated due to trade tensions and shifting global alliances. The U.S. has threatened new tariffs on Indian exports, which has frustrated the Indian government and businesses. At the same time, India is strengthening ties with Russia for energy deals and military equipment, something the U.S. strongly opposes. Washington has also criticized India's stance on global conflicts, pushing New Delhi to assert its independent foreign policy. Additionally, India is unhappy with U.S. visa restrictions affecting Indian tech workers, a major issue for its booming IT sector. There's also growing resentment over U.S. interference in India's internal matters, such as human rights and religious policies. While India still cooperates with the U.S. on defense and technology, these tensions are pushing it to balance its ties between East and West. If things keep going this way, India may further distance itself from American influence. Number 8. Turkey's relationship with the United States has been getting worse in 2025 due to several major disagreements. One big issue is that Turkey is getting closer to Russia, buying weapons like the S-400 missile system, which the U.S. strongly opposes. In response, Washington has imposed sanctions on Turkey, which has only made things worse. Turkey is also frustrated with U.S. support for Kurdish groups in Syria, whom Turkey sees as a major threat. On top of that, tensions have risen over Turkey's role in NATO, as it sometimes takes positions that go against Western interests. The U.S. has also criticized Turkey's human rights record and political decisions, which Ankara sees as interference. Meanwhile, Turkey is trying to be more independent in global politics, forming its own alliances in the Middle East and beyond. All of this has made Turkey move away from the U.S., making their relationship more strained than ever. Number 7. France has been growing more distant from the United States in 2025 due to political and economic tensions. One major issue is that France, along with the rest of Europe, is frustrated with U.S. protectionist policies, which hurt European trade. The U.S. has also pressured France on defense spending and military commitments, leading to disagreements within NATO. Additionally, France is pushing for greater European independence, reducing reliance on the U.S. for security and technology. French leaders have also criticized American foreign policies, especially in the Middle East and Africa, where they see U.S. actions as destabilizing. There's also growing resentment over U.S. tech dominance, with France calling for stronger regulations on American companies like Google and Meta. Meanwhile, cultural and diplomatic clashes, including differences on global governance, have widened the gap. While they remain allies, France is clearly moving toward a more independent stance, sometimes even opposing U.S. interests. Number 6. Germany's relationship with the United States in 2025 is becoming more strained due to economic and political disagreements. One major issue is U.S. protectionist policies, which hurt German exports and create tension between the two economies. Germany is also frustrated with U.S. pressure to increase defense spending and rely less on Russian energy, especially after past energy crises. Additionally, Germany and other European nations are working towards greater independence from U.S. influence, particularly in defense and technology. There are also disagreements over how to handle global conflicts, with Germany favoring diplomacy while the U.S. takes a more aggressive approach. The rise of American tech dominance has led to German calls for stricter regulations on U.S. companies operating in Europe. Meanwhile, Washington's unpredictable foreign policies have made Germany and the EU question their reliance on the U.S. for leadership. While still allies, Germany is clearly moving toward a more independent and sometimes opposing stance. Number 5. South Africa's relationship with the United States has become more tense in 2025 due to political and economic disagreements. One of the biggest issues is that the U.S. imposed sanctions on South African officials, which the South African government sees as unfair interference. In response, South Africa's expelled ambassador to the U.S. called the sanctions a badge of dignity, showing the growing divide. The country has also strengthened its ties with Russia and China, moving away from Western influence. The U.S. has criticized South Africa's stance on global conflicts, especially its neutral position on Russia's actions in Ukraine. Additionally, South Africa is pushing back against U.S. trade policies that it views as harming its economy. There is also frustration over American influence in African politics, with South Africa advocating for a more independent and multipolar world. These factors are making South Africa more distant from the U.S. and closer to other global powers. Number 4. Mexico's relationship with the United States in 2025 is becoming more strained due to economic and political tensions. One major issue is the U.S. imposing new tariffs on Mexican exports, which has hurt businesses and led to strong backlash from Mexico. In response, Mexico has launched a Made in Mexico campaign, encouraging people to buy local instead of relying on American goods. Another big problem is U.S. immigration policies, which Mexico sees as too harsh, especially with increased border security and deportations. The two countries also have disagreements over drug trafficking, with the U.S. blaming Mexico for the fentanyl crisis, while Mexico argues that American demand fuels the problem. Additionally, Mexico is strengthening its ties with China, which the U.S. doesn't like. Political tensions are also rising as Mexican leaders push back against American influence in their country's policies. While Mexico and the U.S. are still economic partners, their relationship is growing more complicated and tense. Number 3. Canada's relationship with the United States in 2025 is facing serious tensions, mainly due to economic disputes. The U.S. has imposed tariffs on Canadian goods, which has angered both the government and citizens. In response, Canada has started a Boycott American Products movement, encouraging people to support local businesses instead. Trade disagreements over energy and manufacturing have also added to the strain, especially as Canada looks for new partners outside the U.S. Additionally, Canada is frustrated with U.S. immigration policies, which affect many Canadians working or studying in America. Climate policies are another issue, with Canada feeling that the U.S. isn't doing enough to combat global warming. There's also growing resentment over U.S. influence in Canadian politics, with many Canadians wanting a more independent approach. While Canada and the U.S. remain allies, their relationship is becoming more strained than ever. Number 2. Russia and the United States have been rivals for decades, but in 2025, their relationship is worse than ever. The biggest reason is the ongoing war in Ukraine, where the U.S. continues to send weapons and financial aid to Ukraine, directly opposing Russia. In response, Russia has strengthened its ties with China, North Korea, and Iran, forming a stronger anti-U.S. alliance. The U.S. has also imposed heavy sanctions on Russia, crippling its economy, but Russia has found ways to bypass them through alternative trade routes. Cyber attacks and espionage between the two nations have also increased, adding to the tension. Russia is expanding its military influence in regions like Africa and the Middle East, challenging U.S. dominance. Meanwhile, Russian leaders openly criticize U.S. foreign policies, calling them a threat to global stability. With all these conflicts, Russia sees the US as its main enemy on the world stage. Number 1. China's relationship with the United States in 2025 is at one of its most tense points due to ongoing economic and political conflicts. The US has imposed new tariffs on Chinese goods, escalating the trade war and hurting both economies. China is also angry about US support for Taiwan, especially as the US continues to send military aid and weapons to the island. Additionally, the US has accused China of cyber attacks and spying, leading to more restrictions on Chinese tech companies. China, in return, has strengthened its ties with Russia and other US rivals, forming a stronger opposition to American influence. The South China Sea remains another major source of conflict, with both nations increasing their military presence in the region. There are also tensions over the fentanyl crisis, with the US blaming China for supplying key ingredients for illegal drugs. As both countries push back against each other, their rivalry is shaping global politics like never before. As global politics keep shifting, the relationship between the United States and these countries will continue to evolve. Some of these tensions might ease with diplomacy, while others could grow into even bigger conflicts. One thing is certain: international alliances are changing, and the world is becoming more divided. What do you think about these rising tensions? Will the US be able to repair these relationships, or are we heading toward a new global power struggle? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on world affairs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.